to understand that question, or to answer that question, you have to really go back to how I got here in the first place. I moved up here in 2005 after Katrina from New Orleans. And when you lose everything, Katrina was devastating. So when you lose everything, after that happens, after that reset happens, you tend to get a new lease on life, and you tend to look at things a little bit differently than you did prior. So I will say this, had it not been for Katrina, I probably wouldn't have been in the right mindset to start a business, or even think about starting a business, or think about starting Football Game Plan. So now that brought me up here, because I had two choices. It was either Southwest Missouri or New York City area. So to me, it was a no-brainer. So I get up here in 05, and I'm still trying to find my way. And I remember vividly, the 2006 draft is when we really birthed the idea of starting Football Game Plan. And throughout that whole draft, if you guys remember, it was the Vince Young, Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Mario Williams draft. And I always had a habit of watching stuff on TV, and when I didn't agree with things on TV or what was being said, I always called my homeboy up and complained. And it got to the point where we got tired of complaining to each other, and we said, well, what can we do to get this out here? What can we do? We need to start our own website. And so that right there was the birth of the whole Football Game Plan thought process. So this was April of 2006. So next thing, we spent the entire football season still floating the idea out, trying to figure out how we're going to get our voices heard or get our word out there about what we want to do. But it was initially the 2006 NFL draft and that entire draft process that really started this whole thing. So when we fast forward to 2007, as we were starting to approach the whole time frame of when we wanted to start, which was August 1st, 2007, that was going to be the deadline, the launch date, so to speak. So that whole process of building a website, finding a web designer, we still have all the old notes that we took when we had our first conference call on what we wanted Football Game Plan to be, which sections of the country people were going to be in charge of at certain regions. And so we're mapping this stuff out. I think one of the biggest arguments we had was trying to figure out what the logo was going to look like. We went through about maybe 15 different logos before we finally settled on the logo that we have currently, and the slogan too, and the name. Because Football Game Plan didn't come about, the name itself didn't come about probably until April, before we launched the website. So we're still trying to figure out what we were going to call it. We had, I want to say, maybe over 100 or something names that we were going to call this thing, and Football Game Plan just kind of stuck. And once that stuck, then the slogan began to stick as well. What we want to accomplish, we wanted to be a place where football made sense. So why not throw that into the slogan? So that's how we got started, and it was a lot of going back and forth on what type of website we were going to be, where we're going to just cover the draft, where we could talk about the nonsense that's out there, or where we're going to just talk about NFL or major college football. Then I was just like, hey, why won't we just create something that we would want to watch or want to read at the time? And why not just cover everything? And people were like, well, what's everything? Listen, everything from NFL, arena football, Canadian football, women's tackle football, high school football, everything. If it involves a pigskin, we need to talk about it. And at the time, the World League was still out. So the entire World League, we were going to cover everything that involved a pigskin. Was the reason why Football Game Plan was going to be the one-stop shop for the football fan. Because again, if you love football, this will be a place where it made sense and where you're going to get your equal coverage on anything that was being played on a gridiron. The ultimate goal, honestly, was just to be a place where people can get additional coverage to what they already have out there. Let's say you want to go to a major site or whatever site you go to get your information. We want it to be a place that gave you a 360 view of football, whether it be from a whiteboard standpoint or from a schematic standpoint, from a personnel standpoint. We wanted to give you more information than you got elsewhere. And plus, we wanted to be a place where, let's say, the Appalachian State fan could feel as though their voice is represented more so than, or as equal as, let's say, the Michigan fan. And I bring up Appalachian State and Michigan because that's one thing that made our website kind of popular, was the fact that we were the only place to predict App State beating Michigan. And our first article, quite honestly, was one that we knew was going to get a lot of traction. It became viral. It was a joke poking fun at the whole Michael Vick situation, because if you remember, when Michael Vick, 2007, that's when Vick got in trouble and Vick had the whole drama with the dog fighting. So we put out an article. We had a section on our website called Offsides, where we told jokes. And that was going to be the debut article of Football Game Plan. So we worked on that probably for about a good 2 months. So we put in the article that since number 7, and we didn't call him by his name, but since quarterback number 7 wants to be involved in dog fighting, here are a few dog fights that we want to see. And we had like crazy things like Droopy versus Scooby-Doo or Scrappy-Doo versus Clifford. So we had a lot of creativity involved there, a lot of humor involved there. And that was the debut article on August 1st. And that went viral, and that kind of shot us into the stratosphere as far as hits are concerned for a day 1 debut. And we were excited about that. What was interesting about that was that our first month we had over 500 hits to the website, thanks in part to that Michael Vick article. Then after that, that got people's eyes on Football Game Plan. And once they got there, they saw what we had to offer. They saw, hey, we can get NFL coverage, we can get Division 1 AA coverage at the time. Now it's FCS. We can get Division 2. We can get women's tackle football information, some World League football information, CFL, all of those things. And people were like, wow, this is a website that covers everything. So the initial article was the shock and awe. And once they got to where we are at footballgameplan.com, it really took off. So our first month was huge. We had over 500,000 hits in that first month. And by the end of the football season, we were climbing up the website rankings. I think we reached maybe 5 figures initially on certain websites where we were ranked. And keep in mind, this is a website that debut article started in August. We had NFL previews by that time. So we got a lot of traffic, and initially, and then throughout the entire year, throughout the entire football season, where we just continue to climb. So to us, we thought, hey, we got these numbers, this is pretty cool, but we weren't ready for the type of success we had initially. We didn't, as much as you expect you're going to have success, we kind of thought, okay, maybe if a couple of hundred people check out the website, we're good, then we could build on that. But when we saw it in the tens and hundreds of thousands initially right out the gate, it kind of inflated what we thought we were about to embark on, and our expectations were, I say, completely exceeded from what we initially planned on. I believe the turning point, quite honestly, was 2009, because we had a lot of success in 2007, and we started to read our own press clippings, so to speak, in 2008. The numbers dipped that second year. You know, we lost some people, and the numbers dropped off dramatically, because it's a lot of work to run a website, and we all had jobs where we were trying to do this part-time, and the success we had kind of made us want to do more, but we couldn't really do more because of how our work schedules were. And so 2008 was like the lowest point at Football Game Plan, quite honestly. 2009 was something new, because I felt as though we have to do something different, and we have to get ahead of the curve. And lo and behold, YouTube was around at that time, or just starting to come into its own. And I have a background in mass communications and broadcasting, so we were like, well, how about we start video? And that was something that I thought was kind of unique, because at this point in time, everyone had websites. No one was doing video because people were afraid to do video. We was like, hey, it'll give our website something unique. Plus, it's easier for all of us to say what we want on camera, as opposed to trying to type up articles, edit pictures, post it, and then by the time we post this doggone article, it's dead already. So we was like, you know what? Let's do video. And plus, we could be animated, we could be candid, and I think that was the biggest turning point for Football Game Plan, because we're ahead of the curve as far as video is concerned. If you're watching what's going on now in the whole journalism, broadcasting type landscape, everyone is doing the pivot to video, and we've been here since 2009. So that was the biggest turning point. Now, our first videos were whack, but there was something unique. There's nobody was doing what we were doing. We had on our shirts and suits and ties, and we were only wearing half suits. We were underneath that desk was just basketball shorts or whatever, but we had a lot of fun doing it. Again, we were in that apartment in Mount Prospect at Abington Towers filming these videos. So 2009 was a big year. It was a fun year, because we were really taking a chance on doing something different. Well, we wanted to make sure we cover all bases. So we had the videos, and that started to gain some traction. That was pretty cool, because we had a lot of hits on the videos, because that season, I want to say the 2009 NFL season, we were nailing a lot of our previews and predictions, which ultimately gets people to watch your videos a little bit more. And if you're the only one doing videos, more people want to watch your videos, and you become the go-to for whatever content that you're putting out. So once we got that out the way and we started getting better with our videos, our content, 2011 hit, and then we were like, you know what, let's try this podcasting or broadcasting from radio, so to speak. So we had a radio show every Saturday from 9 to 11 Eastern time, and we did that religiously. It was called the Football Game Plan Radio Show. It was so much fun. And we were answering live callers. You know, we had a lot of callers call in. We had great topics. We had great guests, NFL players, CFL players. We talked to the full gambit. You know, what we cover allows us the opportunity to cover different sports and interview different people. There was this one kid from Germany that called religiously and faithfully every Saturday morning. His name was Alex. Alex has been a tremendous supporter of Football Game Plan, and he called. And how I knew he called, because again, we're controlling the switchboard and seeing who calls in. It was a number that probably had like 25 numbers in it. So it's like, hey, this cannot be from the United States. So every time we picked up, it's Alex. And then it became the Alex Show, because Alex kept calling in, had a long question, which was fine because he was calling from Germany. So we're going to give him the time to answer his question. But that picked up a lot, man. And that was something that really brought us out of our shell, because we kind of got into that mindset of we just want to do video and that's it. But doing this radio show and answering questions, having prank callers call in, and just allowing us to be more of who we are, as far as allowing our personality to showcase itself, I thought was huge. So we had the videos in 2009, the podcasting and radio show in 2011. That ran to about 2012. And then I was like, you know what? It's time to get out of the studio and out into the field, because as much as I like doing my thing as far as like being productive, it's even more productive and more beneficial to the business to be out and about and have people see you. We also have Football Game Plan U, what we started doing once we started to go out and about to places, which is Football Game Plan University, where we'll go on campus, interview head coaches, assistant coaches, do whiteboard segments with those guys. That was huge and that was fun. That also gave us a little bit of a leg up on the competition, so to speak. We came out with Football Game Plan books, which is something that we're super excited about. Our first book was Stiff Arming Football Myths. Then we came out with 2 other books called Football, A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? A lot of cool stuff, and we have some more cool books coming down the pike as well. So that was some big things. It got so big with the videos and things of that nature that when people start to recognize you in public, which is funny. I was sitting at a bar one time, and maybe it was about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and this guy across the bar kept like looking at me, and I'm thinking like maybe he think I'm somebody, you know, because obviously I tend to look like 45 different people to people. So this guy comes over and says, hey man, I recognize you. I'm thinking in my head like, there's no way in hell you know who I am, or you don't recognize me, because I'm not even from here, you know. I'm not even from Jersey, so there's no, hey, are you the guy? No, there's no way. So he was like, you the dude from YouTube. I was like, wow. So yeah, I seen your Jets video on our forum. Yeah, you picked the Jets to do this. I was like, wow. In my head, I'm thinking like, wow, somebody really watched the video. So you put a lot of content out there. 9 times out of 10, somebody's gonna see it or read it. So I always say, like, make sure when you put stuff out there, put your best foot forward, because you never know who's gonna watch it. But I thought that was a cool moment that showed me that how far we came as a company, strictly just from a website to videos to all that stuff, that people start to notice you in public, which is huge, because again, you want people to be familiar with your brand. They may not know Football Game Plan, but they know you. And they may not know you, but they know Football Game Plan. So it's kind of one and the same. And for that guy to say that, it shows that our videos were ahead of the curve, and that kind of got us to do even more stuff where we're going to be out and about and putting ourselves out there. It's just the fact that we get to do something that we love to do. And the cool part about it is that it's motivating in itself, because you may have the person that you may try to scale back on some stuff, but then when you decide to scale back on some stuff, somebody will hit you up privately and say, hey, I used to really like when you guys did XYZ. Is that coming back? So it kind of keeps you engaged, keeps you motivated to do more things, and keeps your creative juices going. I'm just naturally motivated by life in general. I love getting up and trying to win the day, so to speak, or trying to do something unique every day and trying to build on something that I started yesterday. So I'm always excited about the day. And once you have success, even the failures. I don't call them losses. I call them areas of opportunity. Or lessons. I don't take losses. I get lessons. And so I think that right there is also motivating, because once you go to somewhere and someone recognizes you, or recognizes your brand, or recognizes the work that you've done, that keeps you motivated to want to do more. When you get recognized in the bar by a guy that says, hey, you the guy from YouTube, okay, maybe I need to be out there. And one of the best things that kind of also keeps you going is that when you're recognized by your peers or people that you don't expect to be watching what you're doing, because you're just a dude from YouTube, right? So you're sitting there and you go to the CFL Grey Cup, and the CFL knows who you are. Hey, you're the guy that put out the videos. You're in the States. You put out the videos breaking down our game. Or you get an email from an NFL team like, hey, that was a great preview you did about our game or about our draft prospect. Or you get hit up by a coach saying, hey, we use your video to scout this player, and you did a great job because you nailed all the positives and areas of improvement for that particular player. Keep up the good work. So those things kind of help you stay motivated, stay in the game. And again, it's a competition. It's a competitive field out there. It's all competition. So yes, other websites tend to motivate us. Rival websites motivate us, because when you see others doing their thing, you want to keep yourself up to speed. You want to stay in shape, so to speak, and get out there and do your thing as well. You want to continue to be the best at what you do. So everyone out there that has their own website, has their own outlet, tends to motivate me as well, and motivate the rest of the football game plan team. It's only so long they can keep a beautiful face off the TV, right? Now, but in all seriousness, not half seriousness, because you really can't keep this face off TV. But in all seriousness, that came about because of being able to cover everything. And it's a funny story, because back in 2012 was the first color commentary gig I had, and it was the color commentator for the Women's Spring Football League championship game, which was in Towanda, Pennsylvania. So it was just below Binghamton. So I'm up there doing the thing, and people knew that I covered women's tackle football, which was one of the one of the big draws for football game plan, is that we were giving women equal coverage as we would NFL. And so they appreciated that, and they reached out to me to be the women's football color commentator for that championship game. And so fast forward from 2012 to 2015, there was a playoff game down in DC between the DC Divas and Boston Renegades. And the people that of the WFA, which is the Women's Football Alliance, reached out and said, hey, you wouldn't mind doing a preview for this playoff game we have? It's going to be on TV. And I was like, nah, I'll do a preview. And I'm thinking like, wait, it's going to be on TV. And I was like, well, have they found a color commentator yet, or somebody to work the game? He was like, no, let me find out. So he calls the production company, calls me back and said they would love to have you down as a color commentator, blah, blah, blah. I get down there, and that guy, BJ Carbulas, was the guy that he owns that production company. And what was interesting about that is, we go down there, we do our thing, and we had a really good game, and it was a really good job. Everybody gave us good kudos. He asked afterwards, like, would you be interested in doing the USA football games the next month? I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Then we do those games. And then it was like, hey, we have this contract with Georgetown. Would you mind doing Georgetown game? And that kind of steamrolled. So I said all that to say this: had it not been for me covering women's tackle football, I wouldn't have been able to meet BJ, and wouldn't have been on that broadcast, and wouldn't have been on subsequent broadcasts, which now have me doing FCS games, Georgetown games, and things of that nature. I work with a couple of production companies. I've done ECAC bowl games, which came through because I covered Division III football. And I also worked Division II games, which came through. Funny story again. I was doing some scouting, because we also do scouting work. I was doing some scouting at an East Stroudsburg game in Pennsylvania. And, it's a very tight press box. So, you're kind of sitting there stuffed. You can't really move. Halftime, we were just grabbing some pizza that they brought in for the halftime, festivities. And one of the guys that kept running back and forth kind of stopped and asked what I was doing here in a nice way. It was like, hey, what's your job here? I was like, oh, I'm with Football Game Plan. I'm scouting some of these players. Some of these guys are pro prospects. And he was like, well, would you mind jumping on for a halftime show? I was like, hey, not a problem. I'm always about the TV, right? So I go in there, and it's a tight booth, and they're interviewing me about Football Game Plan and about what I'm seeing out there as far as prospects. And I thought that was cool. fast forward 2 years later, I reached out to the guy. I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember, I was the guy that you interviewed for halftime show about football game plan. If there are any opportunities, he was like, I'm so glad you called. I'm looking for a color commentator for this Westchester game or this game. And lo and behold, now I'm working Division II games on ESPN3. I'm working FCS games, Morgan State. I did 2 games in one day. Sporting News did an article. So all of that happened because of what we do at Football Game Plan. Had I not been doing Division III games, I would not have, Division III coverage, I would have not have been attractive to the ECAC if I hadn't done Division II coverage. I hadn't been there scouting the Division II game. I wouldn't have been there at East Stroudsburg to get that opportunity. I told you about the BJ opportunity. So all of that happened because of what we cover. We cover so much, and we've become the point person for many different things, which has also allowed us to be on many guests on radio shows, on many different radio shows and things of that nature. So because we cover everything, because Football Game Plan is the one-stop shop, that's how I got involved in color commentary. So if it wasn't for women's tackle football, there will be no games that I've done in college football. So all the credit goes to the Women's Spring Football League for giving me that first opportunity. I think one of the biggest milestones is the views on YouTube, because people could easily not watch. Again, those first videos we did, in my opinion, were whack, but people enjoyed it, and they got better and better and better. So once we reached that first 1 millionth view on YouTube, I thought that was huge. I actually went out, celebrated, and then I was thinking, well, maybe it all goes down from here. Like, why do people keep watching? And so it forces you to continue to grow your brand and find new and creative ways to engage with the public, engage with the viewers. And now we're at over 5.5 million views, where our videos tend to draw a lot and get shared a lot and get used a lot on different outlets and different forums. So I think the biggest milestone was reaching that 1 million mark on YouTube, because that showed us that, hey, people are interested in what you're saying. It didn't just die off after a couple of videos, after a season, after 2 seasons. And it was a lot of hard work to put out there to where people start to become comfortable with what we're saying, our level of analysis, our way of going about our business. That was the biggest milestone. Other milestones, like I talked about before, was just being recognized in public, having NFL teams or CFL teams hit you up privately via email saying like, hey, that was great what you did, good call on this particular player. We've had the Seattle Seahawks talk to us about this is in while we're at like the Senior Bowl and places like that. They recognize the logo. It was like, hey, you guys know what you guys talking about, because it's something we said back in 2012 with Russell Wilson. So that video still gets a lot of hits. So I mean, those things have been real milestones, and it's motivating for our entire team that it keeps us going. It keeps us engaged, and it's just great to see that something that started from a thought is now something that's recognized in over 120 countries worldwide. What's next for Football Game Plan? You have a lot more content coming down the pike. You look at some more Football Game Plan books we have that we're working on. We can't tell you exactly the name of those books, but they're in development. These are going to be huge, so we have that coming. But really, we're excited about what we have coming with Football Game Plan films. Now, that's all I'm going to give you about the films part. You figure out what we're going to do with that. Football Game Plan films will be something that you're going to be looking out for, that we're going to get rolling. And we have some cool content coming with that. It's a great question, because you can give the canned response of work hard, get up at 5 in the morning, all kind of stuff like that, that people that have already made it tell you that they do, which they probably don't, because they also have like 49 other assistants that help them throughout the day. But the biggest advice I would give up and coming entrepreneurs is to stick with it, period. Like I said before, we had initial success in 2007. 2008 was probably the lowest point. I even thought about just giving it all up in 2012. But a good friend of mine reached out to me and said, man, you got to keep going. I watched your videos get better. I watched your business grow. I've seen more people talk about Football Game Plan. You really got a good thing going. And it was at a point where I was really about to just say, you know what? I think I've reached the point where I've gone as far as I could with this, and I'm gonna just let it go and do something else. But it was just, so you got to stick with it. And when you're sticking with something, you got to see it through, and it will ultimately happen. Nothing happens overnight. That's a cliche, but it's so true. So as long as you continue to stick with it, if you really believe in what you got going on, you got a serious plan, and you believe you're doing it for the right reasons, it will work out in the end. We're living proof. I want to say thank you to everyone that has watched the video, read an article, listened to a podcast, called in on a radio show, liked something on Facebook, liked something on Instagram, shared a video, shared any one of our articles, and bought a book or whatever, a coffee mug, whatever. All that support, I want to say thank you, because without you guys, this thing would have ended a long time ago. So thank you from us here at Football Game Plan.